Welcome to another episode of The Weigh-In. Boxing is back. After 60 days, we're finally treated to some boxing action. In my fight corner today, I'm joined by Steve and Sugar Ray. What's happening, man? You good?
What's good? I'm a bit peeved I don't get a boxing nickname. What's that about, Andy? What are you saying?
Well, the thing is, I was trying to work on that. I mean, I know Ray's kind of Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray, yeah. No, I think I need to work on it. What do you reckon? So surname's Roach, Rocky Roach. What do you reckon?
It can work like you. We'll test it out and see what the people are saying.
It's a classic. Nah, all right, cool. Yeah, what's up, Andy? What's good, bro?
I'm not too bad, man. Not too bad. I'm just keeping myself warm. You know, it's been a dreadful couple of weeks in the UK with the snow and whatnot. So yeah, we're just trying to keep warm. Been doing my morning runs as always. Trying to keep myself ticking over and productive.
Trying to get that body ready for Valentine's Day. Hey, Andy.
It's that and also Project 30.
All right, yeah. Get Project Fit for 30, is it?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we ain't got long left, mate.
To be fair, mate, I got a few months, man. So I got a nice little training camp. Ray turns 30 before me, so he's under a bit of pressure.
That's it. Yeah, Ray's the first, but I think he's got the shortest way to go there, Andy. To be honest.
Listen, Floyd said all work is easy work, man. Hard work, dedication, man. Money team. You already know what it is, man.
Oh yeah, no, for real. But definitely enjoy it, like a bit of podcasting more than the snowy run, you know.
Oh, listen,
mate,
you're out there.
It's not been easy.
Nah, for real.
How training over in Thailand? You been boxing? You been doing any pads over there?
Yeah, well, Thailand, it's home of Muay Thai, innit? You walk down the street, you end up in a fight down here, mate. Honestly, it's a nightmare. Nah,
it's up out there.
Nah, for real, man. There's a lot of good gyms out here, man. It's a good place to come train if you ever get a chance. Yeah, but the thing about it is like the pollution's really high here at the minute, isn't it? So it's crazy. You can't really train outside too much. But if you find a nice gym inside, good aircon, air purifiers, it's all good, man. Yeah, and definitely like that, like it out here. But at the minute, just a nice little treadmill, little five-a-side, maybe once a week. You know how to do.
Keep ticking over. I mean, it's a complete contrast to Ray and I training over in Seven Kings.
Yeah, no, for real.
In the cold, fighting the pads and fighting frostbite, but we gotta keep on ticking.
That's it, bro.
Yeah, keep ticking, and a big shout out to Malachi Boxing. The guy's doing great work in the community, so shout out to you, man, over there.
Are you lot training together now, at the minute? Yeah.
Mate, we're ducking and diving. We're doing some stuff, man. I mean, obviously Ray's much more experienced
Small
than
group,
me, man.
social distancing and all of that.
Oh, that's it, boys.
There you go, man. But
we'll put it out there. If you're in the East London area looking for a couple of sparring partners, we got just.
Oh goodness.
I'm still trying to work out my weight division because I mean at this current weight, I've got no chance fighting the likes of Joshua. He's a complete foot taller than me, but we're probably on that end.
Tell you what, that's what they said about Andy Ruiz, and look at him, Andy Bontiff, same.
There you go.
Might be a sign.
Yeah, man. My missus scared the crap out of me last night. She had me watching this horror at Cecil Hotel. Anyone seen that on Netflix?
No, not yet. I've seen all the YouTube adverts
bombarding me. For that? Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, freaky stuff, man. I thought, what happened to a bit of a rom-com on Valentine's Day weekend? But yeah, I'd recommend
Switch up the vibe.
Anyone. Yeah, what vibe is this? But yeah, anyone gonna watch? It's a good watch, man. 4 episodes. I watched it all last night. One hit. It was good stuff, man. Scary. Not scary. Like freaky one. Good one though. But anyway, what you got for us on these boxing streets, Andy?
On today's show, we'll be discussing Josh Warrington holding his first L in an empty Wembley Arena. Where does the former world champion go from here? We'll be discussing the fallout between Mark Breland and Deontay Wilder. My question to you guys is Deontay done out here? Talking of heavyweight fighters changing camps, Daniel Dubois has split with Martin Bowers. And lastly, Liam Williams has a great chance of becoming a world champion when he takes on Demetrius Andrade.
And before we go any further, please always remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Send in your auntie's group chat. Get the word out and stay weighed in.
You heard it here first. Send it into your auntie's group chat. No doubt my auntie Daphne there will be discussing things boxing with her
Listen, man,
friends.
she was up watching the Warrington fight.
Mate, in an Irish household, bruv, all the aunties are watching it, man. For real.
That's amazing stuff, guys. Well, guys, let's start off with Josh Warrington. He held his first L last night in an empty Wembley arena. There was no massive Leeds fan base there to support him. Some say he looked like a lost fighter there. It was a complete shock, taking on a kind of unknown Mexican in Mauricio Lara. Some were calling it a tune-up fight. It was now a non-title fight, having recently vacated his IBF belt. So, Ray, I want to start with you because I know you was quite furious into Josh Warrington's performance. Yeah. What happened and where did he go? Where did he go wrong?
Listen, man, people need to give more credit to Lara and stop taking away from him, because the way everyone was talking, it's because Warrington wasn't in Leeds, and it's because this, that, and the third. The tactics were wrong on his side. Credit to fighters. Listen, they go in there, they put it on the line and everything, but I'm starting to see a trend with a lot of British fighters on the world stage. You cannot go in there and have blood and guts fights on the world stage and think that's going to keep you there and sustain you there as a world champion. Real life is not a Rocky film. You can't keep on going in there and having these wars and seeing these people abroad and other world champions. They're not going in there and having blood and guts fights every single fight. You got to go in there and be tactful about it. And I just feel like, especially with Warrington, I remember looking at his knockout rate was at like around 30%. Why are you playing rock and sock'em with someone when your knockout rate is at 30%? It's ridiculous. You can't fight on the inside like that for like 12 rounds and think that heavy punches not going to catch you. And you think like your chin can only sustain you for so long. Your redeeming quality shouldn't be your toughness or your chin. And I just feel like with a lot of UK fighters, there needs to be a reassessment, because how many times do we need to have this conversation of getting to the world stage and getting outclassed?
Was Josh Warrington guilty of being complacent and overlooking Lara?
Yeah, I think there could have been an element of that. Like, I think I agree with Ray. I think that I think Josh Warrington got Josh Warrington last night, if that makes sense. Like he's done that to so many people. Yeah. But you think about his biggest wins, like he beat Carl Frampton, a super bantamweight. He beat Kid Galahad, a super bantamweight. They're like world-class fighters, and there's not much weight between those two things, but they weren't big guys. So he was able to impose himself on the boxing skills of those guys, and it was a shock. He did turn over Lee Selby. That was an impressive win. But his thing is to outstrength people. And then he got put in with a guy who was a lot bigger, a lot stronger. I sent you a tweet of his during the week, didn't I? Saying, and like he tweeted, gosh, that's the size of the guy. He tweeted facetiously, look at the size of this guy, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and then he was like, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, sort of thing. Well, that weren't the case. And like Ray said, it comes down to, you got to have more tools in your arsenal than just big, strong, fit. And I'll turn up and I'll just, I'll be bigger, stronger. What was he thinking when you're going against like Valdez or someone like that who was gearing up to fight at the end of the year? That was clearly not going to work. It's that kind of Ricky Hatton mentality of, and like Ray said, when you take that to America against elite level fighters, you come back a loser. And it's a banana skin. I think he could beat Lara on his day, but it was a combination of a lot of things. He had his eye. He had his eye on another fight. We know that. This was supposed to be a tune-up fight. So, but
yeah, I guess it was the mindset, wasn't it?
No, it's because I remember in the group chat we were speaking. Obviously, our co-host Clive hasn't joining us today, but he said other names in the group, and then one of the people that came up was he thinks that Warrington could hang with someone like a Shakur Stevenson. And I said, listen, just because of his age, I think Shakur would have danced with him. Would have made him do the dance to his dance. Whether he wanted to do the tango or the two-step, he would have made Warrington dance. You can't go to the top level.
I saw this come up on Twitter like literally today, and like I think Shakur Stevens got to do it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like he's a good fighter, but he hasn't beat Frampton. He hasn't beat Kid Galahad. He hasn't beat Lee Selby. These are all former world champions, or Kid Galahad, I'm assuming, will win that world title in his next fight.
Yeah.
So when you've got a resume like that, you can't then turn around to say someone like, "Oh, you'll just get moved on by Shakur Stevens." Yeah, good. Let him go do it. Let him prove it first.
I beg to differ. I get what you're saying, but I think it's more of a thing of, like you mentioned before, with Hatton, you start to realize that a lot of the UK guys, you got to learn from some of Hatton's sins, and that's not even a knock on Hatton, because as time goes by, you're meant to improve as a boxer. The next generations are meant to improve on what the past did, and it just seems like people are not learning from the sins of Hatton, that you can't do, like I said, you can't do blood and guts fights every time. This ain't a Rocky film.
For real, and I do agree.
In real life, Rocky does not beat Apollo the second time.
I will 100% agree with you on that point every single time, and that's one thing I really don't like about the film. But what I'm saying is like, or just on a completely separate point, on that Shakur, people saying Shakur Stevenson would move Warrington. He has to go and do it. Hatton lost to Mayweather and Pacquiao. Yeah, that's the elite. He beat Collazo. He beat Malinaji. These are all those kind of, if you weren't about your business with Hatton, he was gonna beat you up. Do you know what I mean? He lost to the very, very top of the game. Is Shakur Stevenson the top of the game? He needs to go and prove that. He hasn't done that yet. What's his resume? Who's he beat? So like he needs to go and get some wins for himself before people start talking about him like he's some sort of idol.
Fair point.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was one-way traffic. Ray, I know you were very impressed by Lara.
Yeah, he came in there with the right game plan, and I guess if you try to shoot out with a gunslinger, that's what happens. And I think, like I mentioned before, when your knockout rate isn't the greatest, you can't do rock'em sock'em with people like that. That's crazy. Like, he was just standing in the pocket. When he got rocked, there wasn't no clinching either. He's still trying to like slug it out. And it's just like, listen, put your ego to the side, box smart. And one thing I give credit to, when we saw something similar happen like this before, when Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz, obviously Anthony Joshua is someone who could maybe more understandably go out and try to punch up Andy Ruiz, because one, he dropped him and he's got a higher knockout rate. But then obviously what happened. And then with all some of these excuses I'm seeing for Warrington, Joshua just said, in his similar case, when a lot of people heard stories, Joshua said, no, this is on me. I'm going to change up things. I'm going to come back. And we saw in the fight with Ruiz, it may have not been the most entertaining for people, but he realized with someone with a chin like Ruiz, do not go out there and gunsling. Anthony added to his team and he outboxed him, and it showed mental fortitude to do that. So I think Warrington needs to go back to the drawing board and learn from this. And just, I hope that, I know a lot of people got excuses, but I hope that excuses don't get to his head and then he comes into the next fight thinking, oh yeah, it's because I weren't in front of the Leeds crowd. Oh yeah, it's because of this, that, and the third. No, you lost because the style is not sustainable. So he needs to go back to the drawing board and adapt or die.
Jesus.
As harsh as it sounds, that's the truth. That's on the world level. How many times do the British guys have to keep on getting schooled? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Guys, I guess we can almost feel a little bit sorry for Lara there, because really and truly, he should be going home back to Mexico as the world champion. However, Josh Warrington actually vacated his belt beforehand.
I was just about to say, actually, like, you got to say it, man. Like, it looks a bit dumb now, isn't it? Like, vacating that title. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is what happens when you try and plan boxing. Yeah, you try and see boxing like a business, so much so that it's, yes, you need to view it as a business, and yes, you need to kind of be strategic. But when you're like, you like, the fighter needs to think about the fights in front of him. Yeah. He was was like, yes, like, sack off Galahad. Yeah, I'm not fighting that guy. Yeah, deal with Lara. Bish bosh bash. End of the year. He's thinking like, Vegas. He's thinking there, and then he's like, let me put on a. He's thinking, let me put on a little show here. Yeah. And show the Americans, so when they YouTube me, rah, look at that performance there. Well, you flopped, bro. Like, now that, like, your career's kind of in tatters right now. You haven't got a world title. Yeah. You just lost to an unknown guy. You now got to go and rematch this bloody monster if you want to get any credibility back before you can go to America. And on top of that, Kid Galahad gets to win your world title against Jazza Dickens. Like, when? The next couple of months. Yeah. And then he's just lapped you. Carl Frampton could win his world title shot in a couple of weeks with Jamel Herring. Now you're sat there at the bottom of the pile. He flopped, man. He flopped.
It does look very messy there. I'm just reading the notes here, and one of the reasons why Warrington gave up the belt was because he didn't want yet another unification fight. So the whole reason why he vacated his IBF belt was it was for business reasons. It was to go to America and get those big fights. We mentioned the names of Gary Russell Jr. Yeah, I guess the plan was to conquer America in 2021. But like you say, Steve, you can't plan boxing, and definitely you can't plan boxing in a pandemic.
Yeah, for real.
It really has backfired. It really has backfired. And like you say now, we're looking forward, and he's now bringing less to the table now than he ever did.
Oh, mate, you got nothing now because in a pandemic, without any Leeds fans as well, his big thing was his fans, like his ticket sales. He can't even do that anymore. So like, no world title, no Leeds fans. Oh, mate, it's a disaster. And what I find funny as well, yeah, everyone talks. Just on an interesting side note, everyone talks about like Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, blah blah blah. Yeah, my man was with Eddie Hearn, like initially in his career earlier on, time ago.
Yeah.
And Eddie Hearn was doing nothing for him. So he leaves Eddie Hearn to go to Frank Warren. Frank Warren gets him a world title fight and a fight against Lee Selby, Frampton, like etc. And then he comes back, he leaves Frank Warren because he goes, you can't take me to America, you can't do the big thing for me. Comes back to Eddie Hearn, he gets beat and loses his world title. So, mate, like, it just goes to show.
What a game of snakes and ladders. I empathize with him, but
this is boxing.
It's life, isn't it? Yeah.
And Frampton, who he beat and who was with Frank Warren, is now fighting Jamel Herring, with home advantage.
At the copper box, yeah.
With Casey Kadimi on the undercard. Shout out.
Yeah, shout out Casey Kadimi, and check out that interview we haven't on the way in. Brilliant interview conducted by you guys.
There you go.
Top stuff there. So,
messy
so
stuff,
it's
bro.
a huge L there for Josh Warrington.
Oh, mate.
And interesting to see where he goes forward next.
All the best with the next plans. I just hope that he learns from this, and then, like I said, is a bit of a call out to the bigger British boxing scene. I saw over last year that we got to the world stage, and then not all, but a lot of our fighters faltered at the world stage because
that's it, bro.
They're too gung ho and weren't defensively sound. So
that's it. It goes back to
we got some fights coming up. Shout out Okoli as well. I think he's someone that's got the right message of having proficiency in defense and now becoming better in his offense. So yeah.
Yeah, he's someone who went completely the other way, innit?
Yeah.
Shout out to him, he's a good fighter. What else happened on the undercard of that fight? There wasn't anything controversial or anything, was there? Or it was a nice, straightforward card, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mate,
Flash out victory for some.
Yeah, it's crazy. I tweeted out, you wait 2 months for boxing, and then bam, here we go, a disgraceful scorecard decision. So guys, let's have a quick word on the fight I'm talking about, which is Zoltan Barrera against Kiko Martinez. Before the fight, we were kind of thinking, pretty decent matchmaking here. Barrett, the younger fighter, taking on a very experienced guy in the shape of Kiko Martinez. But we were expecting Barrett to win there by stoppage, in my opinion. It didn't go that way.
He should have shone there, man. And like, it's deep because we're at the show. Us on the show, we're like TWI. We're fans of Zoltan Barrett. We're definitely fans of his camp as well. I like what they're doing.
Shout out Pat Barrett. Yeah,
Pat Barrett putting Manny on the map, man. I like what they're doing up there. But this was a bad performance, man. And Kiko Martinez, let's be real, he's well past his best, and he's fighting up a weight. He was brought in for you to look good. And then you mess it up like by pretty much losing the fight, and then even worse. Well, I guess like not worse in his eyes, but like now you've got a robbery associated with your like name, and you're just the guy. It was like unjust. Everyone wanted Martinez to win. He was like a fan favorite by the end of that show. Like, come on, old Spanish guy, let's do it. Yeah, and then then the flash young guy like has to get the robbery, and it's just like it's a disaster again. Eddie Hearn, it was a great show. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of talking points and it created a lot of buzz. But Eddie Hearn must be sat there today thinking, "What a comeback!"
I know. Ray, I want to ask you.
Yeah.
118, 111. What's all that
Absolutely ludicrous. This is ridiculous. And like Steve alluded to, it's like this makes Zelfa look bad as well because he doesn't want to go into the next fight. There's more pressure on him now because you did get the win. So guess what? You have to be elevated to the next stage. and then on a higher stage, a high level that you're competing at, you're gonna have that pressure of, excuse me, you're gonna have the pressure of, I've got this dubious decision that's just happened, and now from barely squeaking through that fight and have to fight at a high level, hopefully adjustments have to be made, but it's not the best of situations for Zoltan. I'm sure he would rather not win in such a circumstance, and whoever that judge is needs to get their eyes examined, or not even forget their eyes, their position by the British Boxing Board of Control need to examine why that person is sitting there, or the two people are sitting there, because that's ridiculous. You can't, these people are sacrificing a lot, especially during this pandemic time, to get robbed like that. That's crazy. I saw people on Twitter nearly calling the police because they said that they've seen a robbery live on TV.
Stay like robbery without a gun, isn't it? Yeah, nice.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's bad, man. It's bad. But I think the only fair thing to do now is the rematch. So Kiko Martinez, he gets a second fight. Hopefully, he gets a nice chunk of change to come back over, and he gets a chance to right that wrong properly.
Do you think that will really happen though?
I would keep Zelfa Barrett in Manchester, and I'd keep Kiko Martinez in Spain if I was the manager. I would keep them very far apart.
Fair point. Because he might not want to even do that at this point. And I know, obviously, I won't say losing a star yesterday with Warrington, but one of your stars taking a bit of damage yesterday. You'd want another, I guess, Northerner to take the lead in that situation. And it's not looking the greatest right now.
Well, that's it. Zelfa needs to look at that fight like a loss. Yeah, and he needs to he got lucky. Luckily, his record doesn't say it or whatever. But he needs to now look at it. Him and his camp needs to look at that like a loss, and then think, right, what went wrong? Why does this happen? What can we work on? What can we learn? But he's in that thing where it's he's a bit long in the tooth to be a prospect anymore. So it's where's he going to go? There's a lot of questions, a lot of doubts. This is boxing, man. Do you know what I mean? Not everyone's built for this, and not everyone makes it, and that's the sad truth of this game. And performances like that against Kiko Martinez will make people think that about you.
We'll see.
Now let's turn our attention to the heavyweight scene and the fallout between Deontay Wilder and his former trainer, Mark Breland. Now, you guys will remember that Mark Breland was dismissed by the Wilder camp following his defeat to Tyson Fury last year. Mark Breland spoke out for the first time publicly on the Fighters' Right podcast, which features Tunde Ajayi and Spencer the Knowledge Farron. Breland outlined several problems there within the camp. He even alluded to the fact that Wilder never really trains properly. He's got several flaws with his technical attributes, and even says he can't throw a jab. So a big shout out to Tunde and my homeboy Spence for getting that exclusive with Mark Breland. Guys, I know we've mentioned a couple of times that we're not fans of the way Deontay Wilder has conducted himself following his defeat to Tyson Fury. There's been a lot of he said this, he said that, a lot of allegations, a lot of, ultimately it's been very tasteless and very slack from a former champion. Guys, have you had a chance to watch that video?
Yeah, man, I've been following him quite closely. Mark Breland, it's a fascinating insight into the workings of not only Deontay Wilder, but just generally a lot of fighters' camps. I think we kind of see them as elite level athletes, but it doesn't necessarily always work like that because they're the boss, and sometimes you need an Alex Ferguson to whip them into shape. But once they've made a lot of money and they're the star, and people are making a lot of money by being in their camp, then you've just got too much crossover, and boxing doesn't really work like that. It takes a very special person to kind of have that integrity to always demand the best from themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Mark Breland there speaking publicly for the first time. Within that interview, he said that he was continuously shut down. He was undermined by Wilder's management team. A lot of fingers are now pointing towards Jay Diaz, who's come out of this as, Wilder lost, and naturally you're gonna find a scapegoat, and Mark Breland was the scapegoat. But Jay Diaz there is definitely leaving this sort of public fallout between fighter and coach as someone who's kind of getting away with murder.
Yeah, there's
I think it's just a whole camp of yes men, and it's a difficult one because obviously I'm sure some people want to implement things more than others, at the same time, you don't want to rock the boat with Deontay Wilder because it's a big money fighter and you want to get paid. It's like people forget at the end of the day, yes, legacy and all that good stuff, but this is prize fighting at the end of the day. People have families to feed, so sometimes, like you alluded to, there are going to be cases where the big star might throw his, toys out the pram, and you might just stand there and take it because you know that, that's my biggest star, and it's a difficult position to be in. But the only thing is with Breland, he also made some wild accusations as well. So now it's like the battle of who's more wilder, no pun intended, Deontay or Breland. And so it's just a crazy scenario. So
Yeah, I know it's not ideal to be airing out your dirty laundry, but let's not forget that not only did Mark Breland save Deontay Wilder's career, he effectively saved his life in that ring.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
And this is you kind of hear stories about this from like top level fighters, and they put on a good show often for the marketing, etc. But then behind closed doors, is it really what it's saying it is? Like Deontay Wilder, one of the stories that stood out for me was this kind of idea that he would turn up to the gym and the trainers wouldn't know what they were doing until he got to the gym. And then Jay Diaz would come in and go, he's not in a good mood today, boys. So off you go.
That's crazy.
And then he would just do Deontay would do whatever he wanted to do that day. There was no structure.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Steve. Sorry.
So even outside of the, the big issues with the Tyson Fury thing and the way that Deontay Wilder has reacted there, like that's been just pitiful in my mind. But basically just in the 12 years of his professional career, it sounds like the more knockouts that happened, the more money that came in, the more ego that grew. And this guy just kind of forgot all aspects of learning the craft, etc. And also not really being a respectful human being or respecting the craft of the game. So, it is what it is.
No, definitely there, Steve. Sorry for cutting you off there. I was just going to say, it's not the first time we've heard stories from that camp saying, they walk into the gym and they haven't got a clue what they're doing. There's guys who said that, Wilder doesn't do his skipping, doesn't do the road work, doesn't do the heavy bags. He's very, very reliant on that dynamite punch that he obviously has. And I guess it was only a matter of time until he went in a ring with someone skilled like Tyson Fury and got outclassed on 2 occasions.
Yeah, and this is what happens. You know what I mean? Like Tyson Fury is someone who has dedicated his life to the craft and especially now really sort of trying to keep his physical things that come now, but in terms of learning the job, like Peter Fury had him, he goes, the monotony, Tyson Fury said that one of the big reason why he walked away from boxing back when he did was because he couldn't take the monotony of Peter Fury making him throw jabs at a pad, making him throw 1-2 left hook. But that's how you get good at, that's how you become elite at something. Yeah. You have to drill it. Any footballer will tell you, you read these autobiographies, etc. The life of a top level athlete is a pretty monotonous, boring experience, but you do it because you get those absolute peak experiences that no one else gets to get.
Drillers are killers.
Yeah, that's it. Drillers are killers. Do you know what I mean? And Deontay Wilder, he just wanted to. He wanted the lifestyle. He had a bunch of hand-picked opponents outside of Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury, who he lost to. Who else did he beat? No one. Do you know what I mean? He had a nice little job there. Got WBC title. Sat there on that, making good money. But ultimately, he got found out. And then when he did get found out, he didn't take it like a man either. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to respect that.
Yeah.
I guess the big problem there is that Wilder does have a lot of yes men within that camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real, and that's boxing. It's difficult. Like Ray was saying earlier, if I don't know how you can't hold anything against Breland. He's got mouths to be probably at home, and he's sat there and he's thinking, all right, you don't want to listen to me. Good luck to you. Just pay me. And it probably soured over time. He probably saw this fantastic piece of clay to mold into a dominant world heavyweight fighter, but then he lost 2-3 years. It all soured, and he's probably just turned out right. As long as this geezer pays me, who cares? Whatever. Do you know what I mean? He's an idiot.
Yeah, and it happens more often than not. People be surprised.
100%. People people just kind of saying, "Yeah, you're the man, champ," whatever, and then you lose. And this is why a lot of fighters they come out with, when I lost, all the rats scurried away. It's like, mate, you surrounded yourself with a bunch of rats. Do you know what I mean? That's you surrounded yourself with a bunch of yes men. When the money dried up, they left you. What did you expect? That's what's going to happen to him. Same. you know?
Yeah, it's not ideal, isn't it? I know Eddie Hearn was actually saying that obviously because Tyson Fury is now in line to face Anthony Joshua, I guess the question is, where does Deontay Wilder go next? And Eddie Hearn was actually suggesting, why not take on someone like a Charles Martin?
Yeah, he's right.
Well, he needs a comeback, because like, where must his head be at right now? We've seen a lot of videos that have shown, we're not there, you don't know, but from the signs of it, it doesn't look like his head is in a good place, like his mind is in a good place, and also physically he hasn't fought in a long time. He took a bad stoppage loss in his last fight, so Charles Martin would be a good fight. But how much stomach has he really got for the game anymore? He's not a young man. You think because of the way he looks and acts, you think he's quite young, but he's 35, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and like, there's fights that we would still want to see him have, but he probably sees himself either fighting easy opposition for good money or the top opposition. He doesn't want to take on like a Dillian White or someone who I'd like to see him fight. And you think
That'd be
like,
a top fight, wouldn't it?
you think like that'd be a banging fight. Dillian White is a nightmare fight for anyone. Like, you just know you're gonna, like, you're looking at that, you're thinking, do I really need this? He must have a fortune in the bank. I don't know. I personally don't think he'll come back from this like in a big way.
Cool. Well, let's stick with the heavyweight scene, because in the last week or so, we've also seen that Daniel Dubois has split from his coach, Martin Bowers, and he will now team up with Mark Tibbs. Mark Tibbs, they're famous from the old Peacock gym. Are you surprised by that? Because again, he's a fighter who's suffered his first defeat, and suddenly we're finding a scapegoat. I guess in this scenario, because Martin Bowers will remain as his manager, you'd kind of guess there's no sort of bitterness between the pair. It could just be a case of new ideas, a new camp, and that can hopefully steer a young man, a young fighter who's still a baby in his division to another direction.
I think that's it. I think I was just about to say that like, Bowers has remained as the manager, and it could be a case of Bowers has never been at that top level. He's never worked corners of, like a top, like that night with Joe Joyce. Maybe the occasion gets the fighters, but the occasion also gets the coaches. And maybe the occasion got to Bowers that night, and he maybe admitted that afterwards, and he maybe said, do you know what? I couldn't make objective decisions that night. I couldn't think clearly. I was thinking too much about the career and the future, and I was trying to mold like ideas about where this was going. So that clouded my judgment when I should have been pulling you out as a fighter. I was thinking maybe he was thinking money, he was thinking this, he was thinking that. So maybe Bowers is a better manager in that kind of situation, and Tibbs with his dad is a very experienced guy. He's been around boxing his whole life. He was a successful amateur. He's trained great fighters. His dad trained great fighters. So I think that's a great move. And like recently, Mark Tibbs has been the trainer of Dillian White. Who he made leaps and bounds under Dillian White. Dillian White lost after he left him. Don't know if there's a correlation there, but he was undefeated with Dillian White, and it's a good move. I think a good move. Very experienced man, a boxing man. And Mark Tibbs is a good man as well. From what I've seen, he's very kind of like fighter focused. He's not a yes man.
Ray, I want to ask you, what are the pros and cons of sticking with one coach throughout your whole entire career?
I guess having the trust of them is a main thing, because being in a fight game, like we said before, there's a lot of snakes and rats in this, and having valuable, loyal people to you is very invaluable. So I guess for a lot of people, they like to stay with their day one coach because like they know them best. They know when to work them. They know when to slow them down. They know them mentally as well as physically. So there's always like a clash of, will this guy bring me to the next level, or can this person bring me to the next level? Or like you said before, is the emotional connection a hindrance to us now, because will you make the right decision when I need you to, or will you not, because you care about me so much that you would either let me die on my shield, or see situations come like that all the time, and it's a very difficult decision to make. So, got to give props for the maturity on Dubois to make the decision of, he still kept him in his corner in some formal way. So I feel like it's a good amicable way to like part ways, but still have a loyal person there to know that they've got your back no matter what.
I guess when you're outside looking in, it's a good logistical decision as well, because for a young man like Daniel Dubois, he hasn't got to relocate to Sheffield, for example. He's literally staying within that East End, Southeast region.
That's it. Mark Tibbs is out of like the Peacock gym. So like the Peacock gym, there's a lot of trainers in one gym. It's not like a Freddie Roach type thing where it's the thing is Mark Tibbs
Main
trains
guy.
fighters in there as well. So no doubt, he would have been around Mark Tibbs already. Mark Tibbs would have had him on the pads already. They would have worked together probably for a long time, and he would know him really well. So he's not, like you say. I like that idea that he's keeping it in the same gym. Mark Tibbs would have had an input with Bowers. They would have talked. What I wouldn't like to see is like him going like, right, I need a Freddie Roach. Who's the superstar coach right now? Like, let me go and do that.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna really change my like. Do you know what I mean? Boxing's boxing, man. You put some pads on. You come up with a strategy. You get yourself fit. A lot of it is psychological, and it's about trust. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point in you going out to America to be like some bit part in Freddie Roach's gym. He don't care about you until you're making him millions. You need someone who's there in the corner with you, who you trust, who knows you well on that night. Like Ray, you've had fights. You know what it's about. You need those words to like. Some fighters need words of affirmation. Some fighters need to be G'd up. Some fighters need arm around the shoulder. You need confidence. Some fighters need to be told to wake up. Like you need to, like, you're too laid back. That only comes with time. That comes with like trust. That comes with, there's a lot of things like that. And someone who cares about you as well. Like, you're not just like money someone like, oh, what percentage am I getting? What am I getting here? I'm working 6 different corners over the next 6 weeks, whatever. It comes down to like, you need someone who you're their main guy, you're their number one. And I think that's way more important than any reputation or any other fight that you've trained. You need to be that person's number one in both ways.
Stuff. Well, I'm sure you guys join me in wishing Daniel Dubois all the best. Not only in his new camp, but also in his recovery. And last one from me, guys, is on Liam Williams.
To get WBO belt, like, oh man, he's up against Andrade. And all those like those fighters, Andrade, the Charlo brothers, it's like they're made in a factory for like the worst style you could ever imagine. Like southpaw, long, quick, awkward, negative. Like, do you know what I mean? They're bloody good at what they do, like, no doubt. But are they the fighters that I would want to watch? Probably not. Are they very effective at what they do? They're so effective. Do you know what I mean? They know how to win. In the amateurs, they know how to win. And then they turn pro, and it's like, you just can't not give them the decision unless you're on an Eddie Hearn card and you're the away fighter. Then it's all good. But no, for real though, man. Like, Liam Williams is a good fighter, man. Good fighter. I think this is the wrong fight for him, though. I think Eubank Jr. would have been a better fight for him, and that would have been a more exciting fight for the fans as well. This fight will just go under the radar. Hopefully, he gets paid well. This fight will just go under the radar. It will be a really forgettable event, which we won't be talking about in any time after the fight.
You've got Ray fired up there. You mentioned Chris Eubank Jr. That was my next question. So just to recap, Liam Williams there has an opportunity to become the new WBO middleweight champion in his next fight against Demetrius Andrade. It's only we go back a few weeks ago, we were talking of that sort of Twitter or online beef between Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. Ray, is that a fight you want to see before either of them go to that next world level stage?
Well, this is where I guess the timescale differs, because we don't know when Chris Eubank Jr. is looking to fight, and obviously he's the WBA interim champion. They got the new WBA super champion in Murata after Canelo vacated the belt. So now it's a case of when Eubank comes back, is he going to go straight into that title picture, or is he going to take a fight before that? So if he does go straight into that title picture, then, kudos to him, go for it. But then if he doesn't, it would have been a good fight to see him against Williams as I won't say a tune-up fight, because that's, two contenders going at it, but it would have been good to see them go at it before the Eubanks go for that world title. So now I hope this just means that Eubanks going to go straight to that world title fight instead of taking another fight in between that, because, we see him in our eyes sometimes as Eubanks Senior's son and, a young boy, got young looks. We got to remember, he's not young anymore. He's at that point or stage where it's like, once again, we've said before, you can't always be named potential. You have to become that talent now. And I think Eubank, that time is ticking. You better become that talent now, because you've had your chance to make the mistakes and everything. You've now gone to America, joined up with Roy Jones Jr. it's time to prove it.
Also, we've seen what happens when you take these little tune-up fights and you try and be a bit tricky in your planning of your career. Yeah, you could drop one. So strike while the
Let's go full circle.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. But nah, Liam Williams is a banging little fighter, man. But it's just like I said, like Andrade is so effective at what he does, and Liam Williams is more exciting fighter. I'd like to see him in a more exciting fight with someone who will come to fight and engage him a little bit more. And that's when you'll see the best of Liam Williams. But Andrade, man, Andrade would be a good opponent for a Canelo. I think that would be a good fight.
Okay.
Like he's so good at what he does. It wouldn't be an exciting fight, but he's so good at what he does. There is a potential where he could make Canelo look really bad, and like Canelo would struggle to figure out that style potentially, maybe.
Yeah, like Canelo, Lara, Canelo, Trout all over again.
Yeah, exactly. Andrade was made in the same factory, like I said.
Well, guys, that's all we've got time for. Thanks for Steve and Ray for joining me on the weigh-in. I guess the positive thing is that boxing's back in. Had 2 months of no action.
Oh yeah, there's loads coming up. Frampton's coming up next week, like soon as well.
The first quarter's looking nice, so we'll wait to start the year after a brief hiatus.
Okay, guys, thanks very much for your time. Ray, stay warm. Steve, stay cool. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and keep the conversation ticking over. That's all for now. Peace.
Yeah, peace, boys.
Cheers,
Cheers.
people.